We have so far studied about the field excitation of DC machines. Let us summarize the nature of excitation in DC machines as follows. We have seen that there is a permanent magnet excitation, which means that the flux is constant, and we also have the shunt or separate excitation, where the voltage depends, it is dependent upon the voltage. Since the voltage is constant, the shunt or separate excitation will be nearly a constant flux. Then next we come to the series excitation. So in the series excitation, the flux is proportional to the current in the armature, that is it is proportional to load, it is proportional to the armature current. Okay. Next we can have a compound excitation where both the series and shunt windings would be there. In that case, there are two types of compound excitation we have seen. One is called a differentially compound system, where the flux is proportional to the difference of the two. That is, if you say F is the main field and S is the series field, it will be NF IF minus NS IS. Okay. And the next one is a cumulative compound excitation. That is, here the flux is proportional to NF IF plus NS IS. That means on the same poles, as we see here, on the same poles both the main field winding F and the series field winding S are wound, and we have seen that they will be having a different type of geometrical configurations. This will have higher turns, this will have lower turns, this will be low gauge wires, this will be higher thicker wires. Now for this direction shown, if the current enters in the series and shunt like this, the flux produced by them will add. But if the series winding is carrying current in the opposite direction in a differential, the flux produced will be reduced. So the net MMF on the magnetic circuit will be then the sum or difference of the MMFs produced by each. So that way I say differential compound net MMF will be NFIF minus NSIS, cumulative it will be NFIF plus NSIS. Okay. So the flux is of this. This is the main difference we should be aware of. Okay. So having revised the type of excitation in DC machines, the characteristics of DC machine would definitely depend upon the types of excitation. Okay. Now we know that a DC machine has the field which is excited and produces a magnetic flux. However, as we load the machine either as a motor or a generator, armature current will go on increasing. When the armature current will increase, that will also start producing a flux pattern. So we call that as what is known as a armature reaction. See, we have seen that normally flux is produced like this, but once the armature also start carrying a current, that will also produce a flux in this direction. So whenever the armature is carrying current, and it is likely to change the natural flux pattern of the air gap. Therefore, that phenomenon we call it as armature reaction. Let us look at this in little more detail. What is this called an armature reaction? Okay. Now this armature reaction is the effect of armature MMF apart from the field MMF. And if only the field is excited, there will be a flux pattern in one way, but if the armature is excited, there will be a flux pattern in a different manner. Okay. Now, if we take this a machine, the pattern we can say is typically like this for the armature. Now, in this case, the field is not excited, only the armature is excited, and we are interested to see what will be the pattern. So that means in this picture you assume that the field windings are not carrying current, only armature is carrying current. So if the armature is carrying a current one direction, so we can assume that the armature conductors are finely distributed like this. So that means the currents are going in half segment, that is across one pole, below under one pole, and that is in the coming out under the opposite pole. And if this is the picture, we have seen that typically it produces an MMF pattern which is triangular like this. Okay. So this is the triangular MMF pattern produced only by the armature current with no field current. Now, while this is the MMF, the flux density pattern will not follow the MMF pattern directly because of the varying reluctance of the paths at different positions, because you observe the air gap is very high in the interpolar region and very small in under the poles. Therefore, the flux density will be small in the interpolar region. So this will be the pattern of flux density. So in the interpolar region there is a dip in flux density like this, and under the poles it will more or less follow the MMF pattern of the armature. So if this is the flux density pattern, that means you will notice under a pole there are a half pole the flux density is positive and another half pole the flux density is negative, which means if you look at this, up to the left if it is negative, to the right it is positive. Similarly to the here also, if from here it is positive and here it is negative. So when once you say it is a positive flux density, means flux will go in one direction, negative flux density means flux will go in the other direction. So we can see it little clearly in this picture. So when once you say this is the positive flux density as indicated, the flux is moving from the armature to the field, that is from rotor to stator, because this half is a positive flux density and here is a negative flux density, flux is coming down like this. So if the field is not excited, only armature excited, you will find the fluxes going like this, and other way around under the other pole the fluxes will go like this. That means the fluxes here will follow a sort of an anti-clockwise path, and under the other pole it will follow a clockwise path. So between this point and this point, between this sector, the flux will be entering from rotor to stator, and here it is entering from stator to rotor, and here also stator to rotor. So this is a totally when the field is not carrying any current. Now if both of them are carrying a current, there will be a cumulative effect. Okay. Now since the axis of the field is along the interpolar axis, so armature MMF is on the interpolar axis, we call this as a cross magnetizing MMF, that is cross magnetizing ampere turns, because that is not in the process of along the field poles. Okay. So you will observe if both of them are excited, that means both the field windings are excited as we see here, and armature winding is also excited, that means this is the direction of current in the armature and this is the direction of current in the field as indicated. So current will go inside from along these segments of field windings, current come out from this segment of the field winding. So we can now have this dotted line will show you the flux density pattern only due to the field. So only due to the field it is a dotted line, and only due to the armature it is this dotted line. So we will see that this is the flux density due to the field, whereas this is the flux density due to the armature. And if you add that, you will get this sort of flux density, we will say the cumulative of the two resultant. That means you add this at all points. So what you notice here is at half of the pole the net flux density is decreasing, and other half of the pole net flux density is increasing, right. Similarly, under the other pole from here to here, again the flux density pattern will move, get a positive biased, and from half pole to here then flux density will become more negative. So the resultant one is the solid line, whereas individuals are shown as dotted lines. So you will notice that the net flux density pattern in the air gap due to both the armature and field windings carrying current will get distorted. And we observe the following: the instant of zero flux density, which was earlier at the interpolar region, that is the geometric neutral axis of the field, was also the magnetic neutral axis. It gets shifted to this point, okay. So which was here earlier, it goes here now. So the zero flux density point has shifted, right. So the magnetic neutral axis point has changed, okay, which would affect the process of commutation, because it is at this point the conductors of the armature change its direction. And we also observe one interesting thing, that is there is an increase in flux density at half pole, there is a decrease in flux density in other half pole. But the problem is that in this zone we have an increase in flux density, which means in the iron may get more saturated. In the other side there is a decrease in flux density, that means it will get less saturated. So if you look at the BH curve, we know that increase in flux density is not necessarily directly proportional to the increase in MMF whenever the circuit is under saturation. So the increase in flux in the one half region, in this half region, will be less compared to the decrease in flux in the other half region. So it is not that the whatever flux decreases in one half, exactly the same flux would increase in the other half. Therefore there is this would result in a net resultant flux per pole, okay. So we call this net resultant flux per pole as a net demagnetizing effect of armature reaction, okay, because of the saturation in this. So we observe two things: one is the magnetic axis changes, and there is a net reduction in flux per pole due to armature reaction, okay. So this is a undesirable feature, that we have the So we come back. So we see the following. One is there is a cross magnetization, and which results in a demagnetizing effect. So that means this is what we see. There is a demagnetizing effect. So that means there is a reduction in main flux on load. Okay. So more you load, there is a more reduction. Okay. Now this will have an immediate effect on limits on overload. So how much machine you can overload. So more you overload, there is a further reduction in flux, which will be reduction in flux causes reduction in voltage and then speed variations and so on. So there is a limit on the overload of the machine, and you will notice that the armature reaction effect as far as the reduction of flux is concerned is more pronounced on a shunt machine, because in a shunt machine it is a constant flux machine. As the armature current goes on increasing, there is a continuous reduction in flux. On the contrary, in a series machine, since both the armature winding and series windings should both be carrying the current, the demagnetizing effect of the armature reaction will be considerably reduced. Okay. So we have to now see how to take care of this cross magnetization effects, and what are its impacts and so on. The immediate problem, as we say, there is a distortion, and we would like to reduce the distortion in the flux density patterns. One way to do it is to make the reluctance in the interpolar region higher. If we go back to this slide, if we can somehow make this reluctance higher in the interpolar region, so we can somehow reduce this cross magnetizing effect. So it means flux density due to this we should try to reduce here. Okay. So that is often done. That means you have in the armature during this region the teeth and the armature teeth, and also the pole tips. If they are more saturated in the pole tips, so it will increase the reluctance. Okay. And so one of the method is somehow try to increase the reluctance in the interpolar region by driving them into saturation. That means you can make this not the pole tips can be suitably formed in a way. That means you can increase the reluctance here by some chamfering here. Okay. In these portions you try to increase the air gap so that these portions get a little more saturated. So this is one of the methods of reducing the effect of cross magnetization. Okay. Now we have seen next is we have to see what is the effects of commutation. Now we know that whenever a coil is undergoing commutation, it is short circuited by the brushes. So there is also the change that takes place from a positive current to a negative current. Okay. So you will notice that before in one direction it is carrying a current I A, and this will change to minus IA under commutation. So this is your commutation period. Let us say delta T is the commutation period. And you want this change from IA to minus IA in that coil to be linear. So this is called a linear commutation. This is a linear commutation, and you don't want it to be sort of retarded commutation or something. So often what will happen is it may not follow this path, it may follow something else. This is a undesirable retarded commutation. So with time, this is with time how the current is going in the process, and we know that this is the interpolar region where this commutation is taking place. Okay, we will see that there is a coil undergoing commutation gets voltages induced in them. Now there is the voltage which is induced due to the movement of conductors, and there is also a voltage due to its own self inductance. That means the current is changing. So we know there is a reactance voltage, there is what is known as a reactance voltage, which is say L di by dt. There is an inductance in the coil, there is a current changing, and that voltage will be induced in such a way that it will oppose change of current. So obviously it will not be helping the linear commutation. Okay, and of course there will also be a speed voltage which is due to the movement, that is due to the BLV. That means this, when it is moving, there is a voltage when there is a movement, linear movement, that is also there. Now if somehow if the speed voltage opposes the reactance voltage, we can try to get a linear commutation. So net induced voltage in the commutating coil must be reduced, because there is a voltage due to its own self inductance, also mutual inductance from other coils as well. Okay, so this is a little complex physical phenomena. So this commutation process, how to make it linear? Now we must try to make the resistance higher than inductance. So one way is the increase resistance and decrease inductance. For linear commutation, increase R and decrease L. So increase the resistance and decrease the inductance. Okay. Now to increase the resistance only, we will use the carbon. That's one of the reasons to use carbon brushes. Carbon or graphite, or so we use that is called a resistance commutation. And decrease the inductance, that means use less turns in a slot. Okay. Now this way we try to have a improved version. This is called a resistance commutation. So we notice that there is a brush which is touching the commutator segments, and it moves. So as it moves, the commutating coils, which is coils undergoing commutation, this is the commutators, this is the brush. You will notice that it is undergoing a change of resistance in the process because the contact is changing. Okay, and if there is any in the commutating coil, if high voltages are induced, it will cause sparking. So high voltages cause sparking in the commutating coil. So you may often find across the brushes in several of the DC machines the sparking taking place, and this sparking will have an impact of corroding the materials. That means there will be pits on the commutators, or there could be pits in the brushes. So that will be uneven, that will further result in uneven contacts, and over a period of time it may wear out and necessitate replacements. But if it permanently damages the commutators, that will result in pitting of the commutators, and which would be very dangerous. So we must try to make this commutation process very smooth and without any damaging effects. Okay, so we have we come to whatever we have discussed now. We will see that the short circuiting coil is inductive with time and varying resistance. So that means we have a delayed commutation. Okay, now sorry. Okay, so we have seen effect of commutation due to the armature reaction is reduce. We must try to reduce sparking, ideal commutation from linear commutation, and we must also have a short circuited coil is inductive, and time varying resistance is there, and it will cause delayed commutation. Okay, now there are rotational voltage in the coil, as we have said, and our main concern would be to avoid excessive current densities at the brush. If very high current densities are there, it causes heating and sparking. Okay, so we must try to avoid these factors. Okay, and we have also seen that the reactance voltage causes delayed commutation, and therefore we must make the inductance small, that means reduce the turns, and we must also make the resistive brush contact significant. That means we make it a resistive brush contact significant, and that is why we use the carbon brushes, and we have what is known as resistance commutation. This method is used only in small machines, because we can't use it in big machines, resistance commutation. Okay, we have also seen that rotational voltage in the coil, this is one of the observations we can. Rotational voltage in the coil, it aid or hinder the commutation. Okay, so depends upon how it acts with reference to the other induced voltages. Okay, so we have seen that we must try to see that rotation in such a way that rotational voltage must oppose reactance voltage. That means in the commutation, in the coil undergoing commutation, the voltage induced, there is reactance voltage. We must somehow inject additional rotational or speed voltage such a way, in such a direction, to oppose the reactance voltage. So this should be our purpose, and this is, that means by giving this, adding the voltage, we call that process called a voltage commutation. That means you are trying to put additional voltage into the commutating coil in such a direction as to oppose the reactance voltage. Therefore this is called a voltage commutation. That means we introduce additional flux density in the interpolar region. That means we introduce additional fluxes in the interpolar region through what we call it as interpoles. So these are called the interpoles. That means you fix some poles, small poles in the interpolar region, and those poles will be carrying current which will be same as the armature current, because it has to nullify the armature reaction, and which must be linear. You don't want that pole to have a saturation, magnetic saturation, so it must be such that it is wound such a way that it is always works on the linear portion of the BH curve. Okay, this is, so we come to an important aspect of the so called the interpoles. So we can see how these interpoles are fixed. Okay. So typically interpoles and their associated component of flux we can see here. Okay. So there is, these are the poles in between which are fixed. So it will flow like this. So whatever the armature MMF, it will try to nullify. So there it will induce a voltage in the commutating coil to effect better commutation. So you will see the interpoles will be producing flux like this, whereas the main poles will be producing flux like this. So there is a flux of the interpoles will be at quadrature to the flux of the main poles, because interpoles are fixed in between the two poles. Okay, and this is the nature. And of course there will be some interpole leakage flux may be there, but bulk of it will go to this. So more clearer view of the interpoles, we will see it now. Okay. Right, here are some pictures of the interpoles. We had seen it earlier. These are the main poles, and these are the interpoles. Okay. Similarly, we have a little bigger picture of interpoles. Again, another picture of interpoles. These are the main poles, and these are the interpoles. Again, these are the main poles, and in between are the interpoles. So I think this must be fairly clear from these pictures how the interpoles are really fixed. This is again another picture, main poles and interpoles. In between they are there. So if one conducts experiments in a laboratory, one can see if you connect interpoles in the circuit, the sparking is reduced, and if you do not connect interpoles in the circuit, the sparking will be increased. Okay. So we have come to this important conclusion that by placing interpoles we will have the commutation improved. Okay. So any student in a laboratory can observe that how the sparkless commutation is achieved using interpoles. Okay. So typically it should be such that it is estimated that about 150% of overload should be achieved at rated flux. Okay. At rated flux, the armature reaction should be such, the effect must be such that even with 150% of overload, the performance is not distorted, performance is not affected. Okay. So 150% means 150% of the rated current of the armature. Okay. Now next point is, what are the other problems of armature reaction? This is one thing we observe, that the coil under the pole faces, there are also coils under the pole faces which face distorted MMF or distorted flux. We have seen here the flux density is changing even under the poles if there are conductors here. So conductors here will have a varying flux densities, not a fixed flux density. So there will be differential voltages, and especially large machines with very changing currents. If the currents are also changing, so there will be highly distorted time varying flux densities in the under the poles, which will induce considerable type of time varying voltages in the conductors. So but those voltages will come to the commutator segments attached to those conductors. Okay. So between different commutator segments there will be differential voltages, it is not there. So when there is a differential or voltage gradient between the successive or the commutator segments next to it, between any two successive commutator segments, if there is a voltage differential, say 40-50 volts, and it's all under ionized zone, so there will be sparking between the two commutator segments. So it may short circuit two commutator segments. Then there will be another differential, it may short circuit third segments. So this way it may have an avalanche effect in which the commutator segments in continuously may get short circuited through this sparking which causes, and it may continuously short circuit between the two brushes through these commutator segments. So when you short circuit between the two brushes, that means that will go directly across the mains supply. That means supply line gets short circuited, which is very dangerous. Okay. So we will see that this is one of the major problem. Coil under pole faces have high voltage under distorted flux density due to the current, due to the armature current. Therefore, there is a breakdown of air near the commutator segments because of ionization. Air breaks down because of the high voltage, and there is a flashover between segments, and finally short circuit between brushes. That means this dangerous phenomenon has to be somehow taken care of through, that means we must neutralize the armature reaction effects under the poles. Under the poles, below the poles, we must try to see that armature reaction is reduced, effects are reduced. Okay. So we use another technique called the compensating windings. Okay. Okay. So we use what is known as a compensating winding or pole face windings. So they look like this. These are the compensating windings which are placed under the poles, and they carry the same current as armature, okay, and opposite direction. So these are just in slots under the poles, and we have here both the commutating or the interpole windings and the compensating windings. Okay. So we can also see some other pictures of the compensating windings. Again here, these are the compensating windings placed on the poles. Okay, and here we see a better picture of these compensating windings. They have been just put in slots under the poles. These are the interpole windings. Okay. Okay. So we now come to the situation where there are both main interpole windings and the compensating windings. Compensating windings are placed on the poles by cutting slots, and they carry exactly the current as the armature. So these are used in large machines, especially in steel rolling mills, etc. There is a considerable change of load. The armature current changes, so they are the changing loads. So compensating windings are expensive, so it can't be used in small machines. They are used like this. So a connection of an actual connection of the circuit will be like this. There is an armature, there will be interpole winding, there will be a compensating winding. They will all be in series, because there is a series field winding, there is a shunt field winding, and a regulator. So you will find that through this method we are able to take care of all the undesirable effect of armature reaction, which means we must try to take care of demagnetizing effects, we must try to take care of the commutation problems through resistance commutation, through voltage commutation. That means the coil undergoing, we must try to see that in the interpolar region the flux distortions are neutralized, and also we must take care of flux distortion in the polar region under the poles, where because of the fluctuating currents, and through the compensating windings. So we have been able to get at this total picture of armature reaction, because this is another better picture of the compensating windings and the interpole windings, and this is how they are connected in a picture. So to sum up, we have seen what is meant by armature reaction. We have seen what are its impact, and we have seen what are the practical ways in which their undesirable impacts can be minimized or reduced for satisfactory performance of the machine on load, because we know it is only when it is loaded that armature reaction effect will come to picture, and they are more dangerous if there are changing loads, very high over voltages, very high overloads, and so on. So this is the total picture. So we will break here and take up about the characteristics of the machines in the next lecture.